Well, hello there, welcome back. The film opens with an injured young woman gradually regaining consciousness in what seems to be a completely white room. She panics as soon as she opens her eyes and tries to stand up but fails. Her legs are bandaged and appear to be injured. A menacing male voice informs the woman that she overslept while she examines her surroundings. The man identifies himself as her kidnapper, Thomas Alcroft. After telling the woman that he intends to hold her captive until she falls in love with him, he gives her her name, Ruby Watts, and other intimate facts about her life, such as her origins and her university attendance. He even shares with her the occupations of her parents and how he is aware of her fear of the dark. Ruby obviously has no recollection of how she got into Thomas's custody or of her life before being abducted. She sobs as she asks Thomas, referring to the cuts on her knees, what he has done to her. If she ever wants to walk again, Thomas warns her that he severed her ligaments and encourages her to stay still. Additionally, he tells her that he did not touch her personal goods, which are kept in a black purse close to the door, resting on a chair. We observe what looks to be a dinner and a tiny cup with 2 tablets on the floor, next to Ruby. According to Thomas, he gave her 2 pills, a pain reliever and a contraceptive pill. He then goes on to tell Ruby what their life together will include, including the daily food she will be given and the fact that he will assist her with washing and using the restroom. Her days will begin at 7 a.m. and end at 11 p.m., and as they live far from the nearest home, it will be nearly hard for her to escape. Ruby asks Thomas whether he had beaten her once he's done, and he says he hadn't. After that, Ruby is left alone in the room as Thomas departs. The scenario ends with Ruby catching a glimpse of her bracelet, which conceals the etching Ruby X. Ruby remains in the same location the following day. She ate the meal Thomas had prepared for her, but she didn't touch the pills, as evidenced by the empty plate next to her. When Thomas comes in to see how she is doing, he sees that Ruby has denied taking the tablets, and he sighs in disappointment. Ruby refuses to listen to him when he begs her to take the medicine because her pain would only worsen. Thomas doesn't respond when Ruby asks him why he's doing all of this as he turns to leave the room. Ruby's cries are heard from the other side of the room as Thomas leaves, and the door slams shut, bringing the scene to black. Thomas pays Ruby another visit later that day. It's nighttime this time because the room is shrouded by a deep red light. After gently repositioning Ruby's sleeping body so that she lies on the floor in a fetal posture, Thomas leaves the room. Thomas brings Ruby her breakfast the following morning. When Thomas taps on the wall, Ruby, who is still asleep, is startled awake. After he departs, Ruby's drowsy and confused appearance changes to one of seriousness, demonstrating that her drowsiness was a front. She then moves to the opposite side of the room, where her handbag is. She scrounges through it, opens it, and takes out her ID from the mirror. Ruby looks at it, perplexed. She quickly replaces her items in her bag after spotting a shadow from a small window, but a tiny plastic bag slips out and rolls away. Ruby spots the ball as she scoots back to her customary location. Before Thomas enters the room, she reaches for it and successfully conceals it in her pocket. Thomas examines her face while bringing her a platter of meals. She should have notified him that she was in pain, he claims. He takes out a bottle of pills from his pocket. Ruby agrees when he asks her to take a larger dosage. After giving her the pills by hand, he departs. A woman appears to be floating in black water later on. As it happens, it was a piece of Ruby's dream. She tries to get up after waking up in misery, but she is stopped by a searing ache in her legs. Ruby is seated in a chair near Thomas, who has already entered the room. He's asked by Ruby who he is and what he did to her. Thomas calmly explains that his name is Thomas Alcroft and that he intends to hold her captive until she falls in love with him, the same thing he told her when she first saw him in the room. He reiterates what he already knows about her. What has he done to her legs? Ruby asks. Thomas said her legs will improve with time and that the surgery was required to reduce her chances of fleeing. He tells her that taking her medication and remaining cooperative are all that is required of her. By offering her contraceptive pills, he reassures her that he has no ulterior motives. Ruby is reminded of her daily routine and the limited likelihood of her escape. Until Thomas turns to exit the room, she remains mute. She asks him if he assaulted her again. Thomas becomes enraged by this and throws her luggage as he leaves the room. Ruby examines the ball she concealed in her pocket when she is by herself. She also examines her bracelet more closely. The remainder of Ruby's day is shown to us later. When it gets dark, Ruby keeps banging the ball on the door of the room. Thomas gives her psychical therapy, and he bathes her with washcloths. Ruby discovers the wound on the back of her skull the following day. She retrieves a mirror from her luggage, but is unable to see much of her wound. She eventually smashes the mirror into tiny fragments and approaches her wound. Thomas is spying on her from the other side of the door before she can see anything. She attempts to return to her typical sitting position while concealing the glass fragment beneath the bandage covering her left knee. Thomas enters the room and gives her a medication before she does. When night falls, Thomas plays a recording designed to deter Ruby from moving and running away. After cleaning and rearranging the space, he eventually nods off on the chair. He gets awakened by his phone's alarm. He switches off the discouraging music, sits Ruby up, and walks away. After that, we witness a sequence of days that Thomas and Ruby spend together, during which Thomas feeds Ruby and assists her with personal hygiene, while Ruby spends the most of her evenings playing catch with her ball. Ruby can be spotted playing with the pipes in the sink one morning. When Thomas comes in to offer her breakfast, he doesn't seem to mind the mess she made. Ruby asks if she may ask him a question while he looks into what she did. In the event that she does not fall in love with him, she asks him what had happened and whether she will remain in prison indefinitely. She continues by making jokes about Thomas's treatment of her legs. Ruby is perplexed when Thomas asks her what he can give her. Thomas claims that the fact that she is even making jokes about her predicament shows that she is clearly feeling better. She must be growing bored, Thomas says, and he offers to get her something to make her stay more bearable. After giving it some thought, Ruby requests that Thomas bring her a book to keep her occupied, as well as a pillow and blanket. After she complies, Thomas questions her about the pencil drawings of a chair and a brain that are on the wall. "They're pretty," she remarks. In addition to praising her appearance, Thomas asks her to repeat what she wanted given to her, which she does. Ruby is spotted the following day, resting on a mattress with a cushion next to her. As he walks in, Thomas hands her a book. She says she has read it before after turning through it. Since that book is all Ruby can recall from her time in captivity, she becomes overwhelmed. Ruby is given hope when Thomas tells her that she might be able to retrieve some of her memories if specific triggers cause them to resurface. She expresses gratitude to Thomas for offering to help her restore her memory. When Thomas later gives her dinner, he asks Ruby if she has any more requests. He delivers her a red bush tea as soon as she says she wants one. Ruby smells it and brings back a memory. She asks Thomas whether he knew she would choose this particular tea, grinning. "It's the only thing she drinks," he says with a smile. He responds that he completed his research when Ruby wonders how he knows anything about her. Ruby can be spotted looking through her book later in the day. When she applies the mirror piece she struck earlier to the seemingly meaningless letters on the page she stumbles to, she discovers that some of the letters spell out "Don't trust him" in a mirror. A table appears a few seconds after Thomas cautiously enters the room. As it happens, Thomas requested that they eat supper together, so they do. Ruby responds favorably to Thomas's question about the book, highlighting its conclusion in particular. Ruby resists when Thomas tries to grab her hand in his while grinning. Ruby is asked what's wrong by Thomas. Ruby is first reluctant to ask Thomas how many other people were in prison before her. Ruby is determined to find the truth, even though Thomas disputes her claims. She goes on to charge Thomas with pursuing, enslaving, abusing, and killing young ladies much like her. She is startled as Thomas raps his fist on the table before she can continue. He cleans his arm of the blood and refutes her accusations once more. Ruby says that because she thinks what they have is unique, she doesn't want Thomas to have done this to anyone else before. After claiming that nobody else is there, Thomas exits the room. Ruby's terrified looks vanish as soon as Thomas leaves, showing the audience that she was only acting. The following day, Thomas tells Ruby that although her legs are recovering, more time is needed. Ruby examines her injuries and removes the bandages from her legs after he leaves. Her legs don't appear to have been cut. Eventually, she gets up and walks to the door. She recalls a guy in Ruby standing in front of her home door when she taps the doorknob. Ruby returns to her bed after giving up on trying to open the door. She unintentionally smears the ink the message was written with while she is reading the obscure message in her book. She discovers a new recollection of concealing something in the room behind a brick after smelling the ink that discolored her palm. A dozen matches fall out as Ruby removes the brick, indicating that the matches were used to write the cryptic inscriptions. Ruby and Thomas are having dinner later. To create a romantic atmosphere, Ruby requests a candle. Ruby accepts when Thomas suggests that they start anew when he takes it to her and strikes a match to ignite it. Ruby then shares with Thomas the dream she has been having repeatedly, in which she is submerged in water. Her hand gets closer to the match as she describes the specifics of her dream. When a hand reaches out to save her, she tells Thomas that her dream is over. By the time her story is over, Thomas's hand is clutching hers while hers is on the match. Without Thomas noticing, Ruby manages to take the match by pretending to cough and bringing her hand to her chest. We witness how Ruby's days are going in the next scene. She is working out her legs, writing in her book, and rehearsing the use of her shattered mirror portion as a weapon. She pretends her legs aren't in very good shape while Thomas helps her walk again. We discover at the conclusion of the scene that Ruby scribbled a play along in her book. Ruby can be seen doing push-ups the following morning. When she hears Thomas coming toward her room, she quickly heads to her bed. She pretends to study her book to allay suspicions. She accepts Thomas's suggestion that he should assist her in stretching her legs before supper. Ruby pretends that her legs are injured once more while Thomas helps her walk. Thomas congratulates her on her efforts after they make it to the opposite half of the room and says they might be able to have dinner upstairs if they keep going in this manner. Ruby and Thomas are eating dinner together once more in the evening. Ruby is urged to try this lunch by Thomas, who declares it to be quite wonderful. Ruby eats a taste and then recalls another recollection, this time of dining at a restaurant with Thomas. They appear to be at ease with one another and to be on a date. After asking Ruby to close her eyes, Thomas puts on a necklace he had purchased for her. He gives her a forehead kiss. After that, we rewind to the present. Incredulous, Ruby asks Thomas if they had ever been together. With a nod, Thomas informs Ruby that the meal she can still clearly recall was their anniversary dinner. Ruby gives him a sorrowful smile. Ruby can be seen cleaning her teeth at night. She was admiring the two sketches Thomas had placed on the walls when she saw the words "Redu" inscribed in one of the corners. Ruby looks through a little window from her room in the morning and spots someone in a boat. She and Thomas are talking about her novel later. From her autobiography, Thomas talked about how inseparable Ruby was. He begins thinking back on their time spent together. The scene transitions to Ruby painting while he is narrating his narrative, surrounded by a large number of crayon drawings. Thomas is on her bed, blissfully asleep. Ruby stealthily moves to the door after ensuring he was unconscious. Thomas tells her she needs a coat because it's cold outside before she opens it. As Thomas gradually awakens, she reaches down to retrieve her ball rather than opening the door. Ruby says she can't sleep as the drama comes to a close. Another memory of what appears to be her and Thomas having an intimate moment is brought back when the next scene begins with Ruby sleeping in bed and Thomas covering her with a blanket. Another memory is triggered when Thomas and Ruby dance the following day. At a party, Ruby and Thomas are dancing while Thomas declares his love for her. Ruby informs him that she shares his feelings, and they share a kiss. Ruby informs Thomas that she now firmly believes they were together after having the memory. Thomas goes on to describe the operation of the remote control that controls the electronics in the entire area. When he plays some music, Ruby begins to dance for him. Ruby begins to cry before they become intimate, even though they both laugh and kiss. Thomas offers to give Ruby an explanation when she wonders how they came to this conclusion. The setting shifts to the past while Thomas is narrating the tale. Ruby is seen at a pub, waiting for Thomas. Nick, who lives with her, is openly flirting with her. Ruby and Nick depart to return home when Thomas misses the train and is unable to meet her. Ruby receives a message from Thomas saying that his friend Rob is picking him up and that he should see her shortly. Ruby rejects Nick's attempt to kiss her, but he keeps trying. He viciously attacks her and renders her unconscious. After arriving at Ruby's residence and witnessing the scene, Thomas killed Nick, who was still intoxicated, and transported Ruby to Rob's vehicle. Ruby regained consciousness at Thomas's house after Rob grudgingly drove them both there. It is revealed that the encounter with Nick caused Ruby to lose her memories. Thomas stops Rob before he can call for an ambulance. After some debate, Rob consents to assist Thomas in his attempt to restore Ruby's memory. They head far north, where Thomas thanks Rob for his assistance and severs his relationship with him. After that, Thomas takes Ruby to a deserted island farm where he holds her captive. Thomas gradually learns about retrograde amnesia, a type of amnesia in which the victim loses all memory of the past before an attack. He also discovered that whenever Ruby slept a lot, her memory appeared to return to its pre-attack state. Ruby is initially unresponsive while Thomas shows her images to help her regain her memory. Thomas discovered how to manage her sleep pattern and activate specific memories in an effort to speed up her memory recovery and extend her learning period. She responds and makes progress when he offers her favorite book. Thomas keeps trying, but he believes he needs a fresh start to really win back Ruby's memories and trust. For this reason, he built the White Chamber and made up the whole story about severing Ruby's leg ligaments and kidnapping her. Ruby breaks down in tears as Thomas concludes his story, and she appears to regain her memory. The two get close and end up dozing off on each other. Before Thomas's watch can sound his alarm, Ruby wakes up first and switches it off. She stabs him with a fragment of the broken mirror. Thomas tries to stop her as she begins to crawl away. She escapes to the outside after kicking him with her feet. She goes to the boat after staring at the sky with tears in her eyes, but she faints before she can get away. When she awakens in a hospital room, the doctor tells her that she would be okay and that her accident might cause some short-term memory loss. The doctor turns out to be Thomas, who once more planned a fresh situation in an attempt to win Ruby's trust and help her remember things.